Hello and welcome back to Champions and Beyond. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the board game Onitama, and we're going to have a look at whether or not this is a game you should be interested in. Now, Onitama is an abstract game. If I move it across, I'm going to put up here a screenshot of the current Board Game Geek, or current as far as this morning, as of time of recording, Board Game Geek listing. So Onitama is in the top 300 on the Board Game Geek rankings, and it is also in the top 20 in the abstract games category. It was released in 2014. There are several expansions to it that have come out over the years, but we are mainly talking about the base game here today. Now, I know Board Game Geek isn't necessarily the most reliable when it comes to rankings, because it can be skewed a little bit, but that is there just as a reference, just to show you. It gives you a rough idea of how well the game is liked amongst the community. Now, I think the easiest way to show off and talk about the game is we're going to get the pieces out from inside it, and we are going to show you with the, I know I said board, but it's a mat that comes with it, and we're going to show you it set up and kind of explain how the game works. So within the box of Onitama, you get a nice playmat. Does roll up nicely and fits in the box very well. Each colour, so each player, will get 5 pieces. Now, this is only a 2-player game, so that is worth taking into consideration when you do consider this as a game, is how are you going to be able to fit a game of that player count into your gaming life, into your gaming group, into anything like that. But each player, so you have red or blue, has 5 pieces. You have the bigger piece, which is the master. So very chunky plastic miniature. And I would love to give credit to whoever did it, but I think it was about 2 years ago on one of the board game groups, somebody actually painted up their miniatures and they looked fantastic. I wish I could give credit. I wish I could even find who it was. If you know who it was, if it was you, thank you. Your paint jobs looked superb. You then get 4 students. Now, unlike chess, each piece can do exactly the same movement as any other. Your movement is dictated by the cards, and there are a whole bunch of cards in the game. When the game starts, each player gets 2 dished out. So there are 4 moves into the game when you do it like this, and then a 5th card goes into the middle, which will dictate who the opening player is. So in this case, the opening player will be the red player. Now, at any point, you only have the 2 moves that are in front of you to use, to utilize. If we take a look at these 2 for the red player, each of their pieces, you treat the black square as the square that you're actually on, and you would hold it. So you would align it that it is laid out as if the board was in front of you. So in both of these actions, the red player wouldn't be able to move backwards, wouldn't be able to move across, because there is no free space for them to achieve any of these actions. But each of the pieces could either move one straight in front of it, could move 1 and 2 to the side if you were in any of these 3. These ones would then be off the board, so it wouldn't work. Or you could move diagonal 1, as this card says. So for this position, you would only have 3 possible moves. Once you've done a move, then if, say, I move my master to here, this card would get given to the opponent, and for the next turn, you take the card from the middle. Now, when the opponent goes, they only have their 2 cards in front of them. They are face up. You can't ever hide the information that you have from your opponent. So there will always be that level of strategy, because you can see what your opponent could possibly do. And this card that got passed over would be available to them on their next turn after this. So if, for example, they moved here with this card, that would go across, and now they would have the card that you originally used. Now, because there are so many cards in the game, and you're only going to get 5 out per game, there are a ton of different combinations, possible replayability within the box. And it creates an interesting decision point where you have to decide if you want to use one specific card because maybe it jumps a piece, maybe it's the only card in the game that actually moves forward. You have to decide whether or not you want to hold on to that card when you get it, or if you're going to use it, possibly presenting it to your opponent, but it then gives you another option going forward. There are 2 different ways to win Onitama. So they call these the Way of the Stone and the Way of the Stream. The Way of the Stone basically means that any piece from one team takes the master of the opponent's team. The Way of the Stream dictates that you get your master to your opponent's dojo, which the starting space for the masters are called your dojo. So if you can manage that to cross your master, your leader, all the way across the board, then you can win that way. Now, as I say, this is a 2-player game. There is no way to increase the player count. There is a way to play solo using an app, but for me, I think the quality of the components, the cards, they're not massively thick, but they are durable. I've played 100 odd games, and I bought this game second hand, so it had however many plays before that, and all the cards are still in good condition. The pieces are chunky plastic, they're not fragile, they're not going to snap. The mat is fairly thick. Overall, the quality is very good for the game. Now, one other thing I'd like to mention, because it is a concern for some gamers, is how much space is wasted within the box. Now, first of all, the lid is magnetic on one side, so there isn't a spare lid hanging around while you're playing the game. with the insert that comes in the game, now I'll put the mat in here and you will see everything fits. And you put the mat in properly. Everything fits beautifully within the box. Now, if you were to take the insert out, you are going to have a little bit of extra room, because really all of the pieces, you could put them in a baggie and just have them loose in the box. So there would be quite a lot of wasted space. Now, I personally wouldn't get rid of the insert. I think the insert helps organize everything really well. It helps protect everything because the box is fairly well filled with the insert along with it. And I will say this, the first expansion for the game was a bunch of extra cards, and this is the base game cards plus the expansion, the first expansion. So even with that, the box is very well filled. Your pieces aren't going to move around. Nothing should be flimsy enough to get damaged, but this just won't allow it to happen. But that is something worth thinking about, especially I know certain gamers like to either get the most out of the space in a box, or they like to cut down on wasted space at least. You know, you don't want to be paying shipping for a bunch of air, in a sense. But just a little thing that I thought I'd mention, I think it's all been very well designed for what you get. So overall, what do I think about Onitama? Now, again, I'm going to put up just here. I did a quick search on Board Game Prices UK, and at the minute, if you wanted to go out and buy this game from retail store, you're looking at around about £30, £30 and up. Now, for the quality that you get the neoprene mat with inside it. You get all the pieces, they're chunky pieces, as well as the cards. For production value, I personally think it's worth the money. Now, there'll be people out there that don't particularly like the shape and size of the box. For anyone that's got massive OCD and needs to have their game fit perfectly onto their shelf, this might just trigger your OCD a little bit too much. But generally, I think for the money that you're going to pay for it, this game is great. Because you're only going to use 5 cards at a time, there is a ton of different replayability. You're going to have to play a lot of games before you see every single combination of the 5 cards that you have. And even then, because you won't start off with the same 2, you're always going to have a different move. You're going to have a different way to try and approach the game, which makes it almost endless into your replayability. And the more you play it with different people as well, they'll have different strategies that they try and pull off. There isn't a clear strategy to win the game. For a 2-player game, once you get to know the rules, you're looking at a 5-10 minute experience. It's a good filler game. If you play with somebody that's got a little bit more analysis paralysis, then you may be looking at sort of 15-20 minutes, but it can still be over relatively quickly. And if it's a game that you're both enjoying, you can easily get through 2-3 games in sort of half an hour. So if you are looking for a relatively small box game with a lot of replayability, I think that this is a very solid choice, and I would say yes, you should be interested. Now, there are people that it won't appeal to. If you struggle to get a two-player game to the table, either if your gaming group size is a larger group size when you do get together, or you primarily play solo, this is a much more difficult game to get to the table. However, for some of those issues, there are a couple of different ways that you can go about this. Now, Onitama has an app, a mobile app, which is okay. You can play against an AI, so you can play it solo. There are 3 different difficulties of AI in it. You can use the phone or the device to do a pass and play to play the game. I personally would rather have the components that you get here to play it as a 2-player. They also have an online mode on there, which I could never get to work. But if you're able to get that to work, you can then play the game against other people. I imagine all over the world. As I say, I couldn't get it to work, so I don't really know on the distance that it covers or how much use it gets. Another option is if you are a member of Board Game Arena, then that does have Onitama on it. You have to be a premium member to start the game, but if there is a premium member looking for people to play Onitama, you can join in without paying your money. So there are a couple of ways to get over that difficulty when playing a 2-player. With that said, no game is for everybody. A lot of people do also compare this to chess, and I see why. Chess and Onitama both are abstract games. They both have that turn-based mechanic, but I think with Onitama, it is far quicker to get into the game because you don't have to have a ton of strategies in your head. You don't have to know what each piece does. Every piece can do the same thing because you're limited on the amount of cards you have, not what a piece can do. And I think that, personally, I think that Onitama is a slightly more interesting game because of that. Because of not only the limitations in the moves that you have, but also the fact that all information is open information and you can sit and you can plan and strategize, try and set a trap for your opponent. If your brain works that way, it's a very viable strategy. It's very easy to play it like that. So I hope you enjoyed. I plan to tomorrow release 2 videos showing gameplay using the app. Now, the first video will have either a win or a loss. I won't give that away here. But using the win condition Way of the Stone. And the second game will have, again, a win or a loss, but it will be utilising the end game mechanic of Way of the Stream. So please, if you're interested in just to see a little bit of the gameplay, check those out tomorrow. And until next time, happy gaming.